Well, joining me today is Joel Salatin. Joel, welcome to the summit.
Thank you. It's great to be with you, Michael.
So, Joel, one of the things for this summit, it's the Thriving Farmer Summit. In your opinion, what does it mean to be a thriving farmer?
I think that it means, first of all, that you still are excited to get up every morning. That's important, that you just don't feel beat down.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, secondly, it means that you are not so burdened with every day-to-day thing that you can't get away once in a while and have some downtime. And I mean, personal rejuvenation time. And I would say, finally, my ultimate is it a place where your kids want to be? And if the kids like it and they want to be with you and want to be there, that's great. And if they don't, then that's concerning.
Yeah, because the next generation is the most important part of what we do here.
Well, ultimately, if the next generation isn't interested, we don't have a regenerative farm. We have a business that will employ us as long as we want to work, and then when we don't want to work, we don't have a business anymore. That's why I say that you actually don't have a farm business. You might have a farm, but you don't have a farm business until you employ two people from two different generations.
That's a really good point. And then the personal rejuvenation part, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to go off farm for that. You just need a space for that.
You just need a space for that. Maybe it's, being able to read a book or take a picnic out to the back 40 or go fishing or whatever, but enough space to where you could, whatever feeds your soul, that you have a chance to participate in that.
Absolutely. So let's talk big picture here. The local regenerative system we are striving forward. Why is that now more important than ever?
Well, I think it's more important than ever because we see numerous trajectories. If you look across the world at trajectories, and I don't want to get into a climate change, global warming debate or anything like that, but there are trajectories that are pretty clear. There's a trajectory of land use that land is desertifying, and when we're losing land. So that's a trajectory. Another one is just a trajectory of sickness and disease. In the U.S. especially, we see this, from autism to obesity to diabetes to whatever. Right now, this next generation coming on is the first one, perhaps in the history of the world, that doesn't expect to live as long as their parents. And that's a trajectory. We have the trajectory, at least in the Western countries, and especially the U.S., in the last 40 years, the sperm count in America has dropped 50%. There has been no drop in Africa, interestingly, but a 50% drop in America. So we're seeing the beginning of an inability to procreate, even as people. And then you throw on that the whole nutritional trajectory, from food allergies, autoimmune diseases, antibiotic resistant superbugs, MRSA, C. diff. I mean, Wall Street Journal's carried 3 stories just this week on superbugs. And right now, an American dies. I think there was just a new report today by the Centers for Disease Control, just out today. Every 11 minutes, an American dies from a superbug. That's a trajectory. That's an alarming trajectory. And then you start into the trajectory of just the economy, the debt, consumer debt, government debt, economic stability. Where's this ship going? Social Security. When it started, we had 1 retiree to 5 workers. Today, we have 1 to 3, and the trajectory is that by the middle of the baby boomers, it's going to be 1 to 2. how do two people support one in the Social Security system? And this is not just the US, this is China, you know, a lot of other places. So anyway, not to belabor the point, but when you look at these trajectories, the point is, when you look at these trajectories, whatever you find concerning, the point is there are a lot of things to be concerned about. And so what's the answer? The answer is not to go, you know, build a cave and you know, live in the side of a mountain. The answer is, well, let's change the trajectories. These trajectories are not in stone. They're not required. Let's change the trajectories. And so that's why, as these trajectories start adding up, and we have these stacked concerning trajectories, potable water is another one. As we stack these trajectories, it's more important now than ever to start bending them in a different direction.
And that is regenerative farming.
That's regenerative farming. We need systems that build immune systems, that build soil, that increase potable water, increase breathable air, that increase nutrient density in food, that reduce the waste of food. I mean, what, almost 50% of all food produced in the world is wasted. It never goes to a human. I mean, these are trajectories that are new in the history of the human experience, and it's time for us to appreciate that we live in interesting times.
Yeah, I just saw a statistic that 2 Wisconsin dairy farms a day are going bankrupt.
Yes.
That's another trajectory we need to reverse.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing you did mention there was a nutritional quality of food. That has changed drastically too. The food we're eating now is just so much less nutritious. And you had, I think, Zach Bush there. You did a conference with him. Talk to us a little bit about what that day was about.
Yeah. Whether you're measuring vegetables or whatever, we don't actually know what's driving the reduction in nutrition. I mean, like right now, I think right now in general, you have to eat something like 3 times as many vegetables today to get the same nutrition, you know, like from broccoli or cauliflower or whatever, as you got in 1940. You know, that's not that long ago. So what has changed in that time? And there are all sorts of culprits to, you know, there's everything from hybridization to more plants per acre, to chemical fertilizer, to a reduction in soil organic matter, even to long-term storage. It's probably a combination of all of these things. It's probably a little bit of everything. But the fact is that we have seen a tremendous decrease in nutrition and a difference in the profile, like especially in animals. We've seen a major change in the relationship of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, which of course are huge indicators in a number of chronic, not infectious, but chronic diseases. And so those ratios have changed as we've gone, for example, out of the pastures into the houses with concentrates, as opposed to allowing animals to exercise, get some sunshine and green grass, and live in a more natural environment. So I mean, we see it. I mean, I'll just give you an example. We participated a couple of years ago in a test that Mother Earth News magazine paid for, where they got 12 of us farmers around the country to send our eggs to a food lab, and I think it was Oregon. Compare them to the official USDA nutrition label on a dozen eggs, and I'll just pick out one: folic acid, which is real important for pregnant women. Folic acid. The USDA label for eggs, I think, says that every egg has 48 micrograms of folic acid per egg, and our eggs averaged 1,038 micrograms per egg. You know, conjugated linoleic acid is another important essential fatty acid that's an indicator in especially in heart disease. And it only takes 14 days of grain feeding and herbivore to push all the CLA, conjugated linoleic acid, CLA, out of the body, and grass finishing enhances it. This is a big indicator in colon cancer and things like that. You know, for years, Americans wondered, how is it that in Argentina, where they eat more than twice the American per capita consumption of red meat, do they have less than half of our colon cancer rate. I thought red meat made colon cancer, you know. And the reason is because the Argentinian grass-finished product, beef, carries this high conjugated linoleic acid, which is an anti-carcinogen. So the relationship right now, I mean, we can talk about nutrition, but one of the big things that's really developing now is the connection between the soil web and our own microbiome. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing now with electromagnetic photography, and what we're seeing is almost reflexive images. You know, when you look at a profile of the soil, of all that microbiological activity, and then you look at a profile of, for example, the human gut, if you didn't have a label on the picture to tell you which was which, you wouldn't know which was which.
Oh, really?
That's how close cousins we are.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how do you maintain that whole intricate soil food web, which is part and parcel of our intricate microbiome? I mean, when I was in high school taking biology, I never heard even the notion that we had bacteria living inside of our cells. Mm-hmm. But I took biology in 10th grade in whatever it was, 1970, I'll age myself, 1972, okay? Yeah. You weren't even born yet.
Nope, wasn't even a thought.
but when I took biology in 1972 in 10th grade, the smallest thing that we learned mm-hmm. was a cell. Now, a cell has a mitochondria and a nucleus and things, but we never went beyond that. Today, we now know that there are entire bacteria living inside of a cell, to where Massachusetts Institute of Technology says we're actually only 15% human, we're 85% non-human. 85% of our DNA, of our actual structure is not even human. Mm-hmm. And so this whole study of the microbiome and the soil, you know, it's like it's time to quit studying big things. Let's study little things, because big things come out of little things. Mm-hmm. And so in my lifetime, I've watched this move into every time you find what you think is the smallest thing, there's something else smaller. Mm-hmm. And I watched that in my lifetime change.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. All right, let's shift gears a little bit here. The regenerative movement is also changing, and the food scene's changing. What are you seeing right now happening in that space?
Well, the biggest game changer in the whole local regenerative food space in the last decade was the day Walmart became the world's largest purveyor of organics. Mm-hmm. That changed the game, and that was about 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that's happened in the last 10 years, and that's a game changer because it flattened farmers markets, it flattened CSAs, mm-hmm. it flattened farm direct sales. All of these kind of niche, local, regenerative, food craft venues, it flattened or even made them go down. In fact, it made farmers markets dip enough that the USDA commissioned a study to figure out why farmers markets that had been trending up, suddenly were going down. And what we found was this Walmart phenomenon. And so for me, for our farm personally, as a messaging, so when we're messaging now, it used to be the enemy was Monsanto, and that was a fun enemy. Everybody can hate Monsanto, yes. That was fun, right? Today, the enemy is industrial organics. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's the new enemy. And so we have to move our messaging to differentiate ourselves, not just from Monsanto, but we have to differentiate ourselves from government certified organic factory chicken, for example, and bring that to a space. And that is all kind of fallout. It's kind of external. It's the fallout of Walmart mm-hmm. becoming the dominant player in this marketplace in the last 10 years. Well, the other dominant feature that's happened in the last 10 years, of course, is door-to-door delivery.
Yep.
Amazon, and the whole door-to-door, the whole internet,
One click.
one click shipping, and the whole electronic aggregation, where we can put a supermarket on a computer file, and aggregate inventory electronically, not in a physical space. And so that's created, of course, new competitive problems. It's also created opportunities. You may realize that our farm, where we've built part of a reputation on hyperlocal, starting July 4th, we began shipping nationwide. That's a big change.
Yeah. And back to that industrial organic, the problem is industrial organic has diluted so much that they are now allowing Roundup the same year that they're establishing some of these hydroponic farms that are supposedly certified organic.
Yes. Well, we're the only country in the world that certifies organic hydroponic production. No other country in the world certifies organic hydroponic production. So we've got everything from concentrated animal feeding operation, egg houses, to hydroponics. It's all under the certification label, which is why we're now seeing, half a dozen from Real Organic to Rodale has one. We're seeing a proliferation of add-ons, of add-on new certifications to try to create authenticity within the government organic space. It's quite profound.
But you would say what trumps all of that is the customers on your farm seeing how you do it in person.
Yes, and so that's why we say we're customer certified. We have a 24/7, 365 open door policy. Anyone can come at any time to see anything, anywhere, unannounced, and that's our commitment to transparency.
Also, the internet, you mentioned the internet, and social media has completely changed as well, and just made everything so much faster to get out there.
The fact that we can do this interview on Zoom, me sitting at my desk, you sitting at your desk, that didn't exist just 10 years ago. That's the warp speed development that we're seeing. So here I am, heading into my mid 60s, and I feel like the mice in the little business book, Who Moved My Cheese?
Yes.
These were two mice, and they had their routine to go to the cheese. One day they got there and the cheese was gone, and they had to find a new route to their cheese. And so right now I'm going through trying to find my cheese again. Teresa and I built this nice little business with a Rolodex, a phone, snail mail, a typewriter, and a Kodak carousel, and all of that is now obsolete. And so, look, nostalgia is wonderful. I love nostalgia, as long as you leave it a day before you're obsolete. So that's the cheese move. That's where we are. And in this space, we've got one of the business rules is every business has to reinvent itself every 10 years, because another little phrase is, what got you here won't get you there. And so, so we have to, staying credibly current.
Yeah.
It takes all the creativity we can muster.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the questions you're getting now, because as you said, everything's changing. So I'm sure the questions people are starting to ask you at events when you're speaking are changing as well.
Sure they are. Yeah. I think, a big picture for me, the single most common change has been when I started speaking, 30 some years ago. I'd get done with a presentation, and the most common thing was, well, that's real cute, but how does it scale up? Today I get done, and the most common question is, wow, that's awesome, but how does it scale down? Because the homesteading movement, the self-reliance, the micro farm movement it is just gaining steam. All these trajectories that I cited, from the need to get your kids out of public schools, the vaccination thing, all this, to drop out of society. Listen, there is a juggernaut of people looking for unorthodox approaches to all these concerning trajectories. And one of them involves getting a little farmstead, growing your own food, and basically pulling the plug on society. And of course, now with solar energy, it's easier even to pull the plug on the utility.
Mm-hmm.
And so the micro farm movement, I think, is actually stronger, and in some ways has more staying power than the hippie movement of the 1970s. That was more a fad. I think this is a more, not a fad, it's an actual very serious, calculated response to out of control trajectories, and to try to wrap fingers around these trajectories.
That is very interesting. So back to the farmers, she's the micro farming movement. Where do these farmers need the most help in what they're trying to do?
Well, that's such an interesting. Boy, I wish I knew the answer to that. Here's the other thing that's happened. I think, as we have become a very techno-sophisticated culture, we have become a very disempowered culture, because technology has a certain roadmap. I mean, the computer does not like it. Like when I got on this Zoom interview with you, the computer does not like for me to be creative and hit different buttons. To get on this, I have to hit the same sequence of buttons every single time. And if I don't, something, it doesn't work. Okay. And so, and I'm not opposed to technology. Don't read into this. I do think that our reliance on so much of our lives now are controlled by sequential systems that can't be changed, that it has actually messed with our psyche to where people, if they don't have all their I's dotted and T's crossed, they're a lot more scared to jump off a cliff than my generation was.
So you're saying it's stifling creativity.
Right. And so what I see is more hand-holding requirement. In order to launch anything, compared to 50 years ago, to launch something today takes more coaching. It takes more hand-holding, not just how-to, but inspiration, encouragement. You can do this, because we've been technologied out of a participatory relationship with our life. I mean, you can't fix your car, you can't fix your refrigerator, you can't fix your computer. I mean, there are very few things. I mean, I guess we can still change a light bulb, but what I'm saying is, there are a lot of things that we can't fix anymore. And so this has made people intimidated, if you will, emotionally intimidated about jumping into the unknown.
Okay, so I'm also hearing you say, we as a culture, because we've lost our shop class, is the thing Mike likes to say, is we've lost shop
exactly.
We've been dumbed down. So now, not only do we need to learn farming, our farmers today need to learn basic plumbing and electrical and welding. So I'm hearing you say that as well.
Well, and even learn what a work day is. what a full day of work is. I mean, people say I'm a workaholic. I guess I am, but I love my work. If I truly love what I do, I don't need to go away. I don't need to go on vacation. But yeah, to learn what it means to stay with it and not clock out, either physically or emotionally, but to stay with it until the chickens are all watered, or the ruptured pipe is actually fixed. You can't go to bed with the pipe running water out in the field, and that's a real different thing than being able to go in and turn the lights off and clock out.
Farming's not that.
No, it's not. I mean, it is a business, but it's also a lifestyle. And that's why, I warn especially moms that I love farming, but if you want your kids in the ballet and the little league and all the city activities that are going on, that's going to be tough to be content on the farm. And so what we have to do is turn our attention to imagination and recreation actually on the farm. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a good tire swing can take the place of a lot of trips to town.
Mm-hmm.
So it, you know, it doesn't necessarily happen on its own. Shoot, you know, searching for salamanders around the edge of the pond, building a rock dam in the creek. You know, if you can't figure out a way to enjoy your farmscape, stay in the city.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or trying to get those bullfrogs to jump. That's always
Yeah,
a heart-raising moment when they just finally do that jump into the pond.
they, yeah, they do. Even though you see them and you know they're going to, it still scares you.
Yes. All right. So you just brought up an interesting point. The one thing you said, you know, it's a lifestyle and you have to be okay with that. What other characteristics do you see of what it takes to be a successful farmer?
Well, if there's one weakness among all of us farmers, including me, it is that we are so fiercely independent that we don't want anybody else around. You know, in general, farming is a fairly lonely vocation. You know, you're out here, you're doing your thing, and most farmers tend to be a little bit loners. Yeah, and yet no successful business is really successful until there's a team. Uh,
Mm.
so team building is critical, and I'm quick to admit I went the same thing too. And so what happens is we farmers, we want to do it all ourselves. We don't think we can afford to bring on anybody else. And so we do it all ourselves. And then we end up doing a lot of things that we're not good at.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, we spend a bunch of time working on projects that if we could have a partner. So I'm not saying an employee. I'm saying a partner. You know, maybe it's a part-time person, a cousin that's got mechanical ability and comes in half a day a week,
Mm-hmm.
and you trade him some chickens or something, okay, or some tomatoes, but he's really mechanical and he can change oil in your tractor, or you know.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm saying is that the hardest part is to be honest about our strengths, and then be honest about our weaknesses, and then really develop an aggressive strategy of ridding our farms or ridding ourselves of the projects that we're weak on,
Mm-hmm.
and loading our lives up with projects that we're strong on. You know, some of us grew up with this idea that we need to work on your weaknesses. Well, I'm not, you know, I don't say you
Yeah.
don't need to work on your weaknesses, but if you're familiar with the Strengths Finder business concept, it inverts that. It says don't work on your weaknesses. It's too time consuming. It's too frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, leverage your strengths and find team players that can complement your weaknesses. That's the way you move forward. And so the biggest issue, I think, with farmers is that we tend to be loners. We tend to be very, very independent, and we tend to think that that if we have a partner, we either can't afford it, or it's a luxury or something, and we're supposed to just grind this out on ourselves. And so we end up spending 2 hours on what somebody else could spend half an hour doing, and we could have then an extra hour to do something that we're really good at.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I had just an example this last week. One of our farmers, she's in Oklahoma, farming in Oklahoma, which is it's a really tough environment to farm vegetables in Oklahoma. She hired her first employee a year into it, and she made the group. She said, "I don't know why I didn't do this the day I started." She said, "It's amazing actually having another pair of hands that can figure out this stuff with me."
Absolutely.
But to your point, I think that's one of the reasons God placed us in community, is because he realizes that, yes, we're all not going to be great at everything.
Right.
Yeah. And on our
Right.
farm, we had, as you said, that one person that came a half day a week. We had a Mr. White, and Mr. White lived 5 minutes up the road. He was very handy mechanically, and he kept everything in top shape. So.
Right. And he did that in a third the time it would have taken you to do it, and you wouldn't have liked it.
Yes, because I got so frustrated.
Right. Absolutely. No, I'm with you.
Yeah. All right. So in a recent article, you talked about the 50th anniversary of Mother Earth News. Your talk is important there because you talk about ingesting good information. all the
Right.
time, just keeping that constant stream of things coming in. Again, that's super cool that that's been going on for so long. Talk to us about that stream of information that you've kept going.
Yeah, well, anybody that knows me knows I'm a voracious reader,
Mhm.
and I read widely. I read eclectically. I mean, The Economist, The Wall Street Journal, Stockman Grass Farmer. Of course, I read Stockman Grass Farmer.
You have
But Acres USA, Farm Show magazine. I mean, if it, I mean, the Pork Checkoff. I mean, the Industrial Pork Checkoff magazine. I don't know how I got on the mailing list, but I am, and I love that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that exposing yourself to a broad base and an eclectic base of ideas. See, the problem is that your imagination is bound by your exposure. Your imagination is bound by your exposure. And so for many of us, the reason we can't figure out the solution to our problem is not because it doesn't exist. It's because we can't imagine a solution that we've never been exposed to. And so this is why you need to go to conferences, look at the YouTube. I mean, I'm a book lover, so read books. I mean, I'm a paper guy. You never have to turn it off, and or you never have to turn it on, and you never lose the material. It's always there. But anyway, this flow of information coming in is the germination tray for exposure to the whole list of options that then go into your head for imagination when you're wrestling with an issue, to be able to imagine a solution.
So if we don't be widely read, we're just putting ourselves in a box.
That's right. You're putting yourself in a box. And in his wonderful book, The Lean Farm by Ben Hartman, he takes the Toyota lean manufacturing concepts and applies them to the farm. And one of the most profound ones in that list of 10, I think, is failure to capture ideas from your team. And it's one of the biggest leaks in any business. And so that speaks to what we're talking about here, because you can't possibly read everything or be exposed to everything, but you have people you're working with that are exposed to that. And so that's why I love people to send me, I love when people send me links. Hey, have you seen this? Because I can't get around to it all. And so I really appreciate whether it's somebody here on the farm or whether it's somebody out there in the universe who feeds me interesting ideas. Hey, have you thought about this? I love that stuff.
Very cool. So let's get started talking about beginning farming, because a lot of people that you talk to, that I speak to, they see that dream, but they haven't either quite taken that step, or they're still working the off-farm job and are doing it on the hobbies and the weekends. Talk to us about the advantage of starting a farm today. There's a lot of things going for them.
Well, there are. I mean, the main thing today is that because of all these trajectories, people are more concerned now than they were when we started. I mean, when we started, the O word had hardly even been invented, Yeah. And so there was simply not the awareness. Today, you have to be living with your head under the sand to not be aware of some of these trajectories. And any mom out there with kids, even if she's eating conventionally, has a gnawing concern about her food decisions and eating at McDonald's and whatever. Now, there are certainly plenty of people that don't care a lick and they, whatever, but there are more, the awareness is higher. And the higher the awareness, the higher the chances you have of touching people with an artisanal product.
And that mom may not buy that organic for herself, but frequently I hear they're actually buying it for their kids and not themselves. And like, that's kind of you should be taking care of yourself too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just an interesting paradigm.
One step beyond, they're buying it for their pets. They buy it for their pets, then their kids, then themselves. I mean, that's the progression.
That's messed up. So one of the other things you mentioned earlier is that people are afraid of failure, and success is all about pushing past that failure. Why are people so afraid of that?
Afraid of failure?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think people have always been afraid of failure. I think today, I mean, Simon Sinek writes about this with the millennial generation.
Mhm,
You're a millennial,
mhm,
and he gives the three C's of the millennials as caring, community, and convenience.
mhm,
And he points out that all three of them are assets and liabilities, like so many of these things. It's not all bad, not all good.
mhm,
And I'm glad that millennials care way more than my generation did about these issues. So I'm glad they care. The the downside of caring is the notion that, well, because I care, I'm owed a living, or I'm
mhm,
owed all because I'm such a good person. You know, I care. I'm gonna fix everything, so you should take care of me. Kind of this entitlement thing. Community. I'm glad that they're interested in collaboration, community, and all that. Um, the downside is a lot of it is electronic, where it's not as deep as real relationships. And the one that really speaks to this question is convenience. Look, I'm glad they want to do things differently, easier, better, refined, whatever. That's exciting. There's no reason to do it like dad did it just because dad did it, right? But the downside of convenience is I want it all today. I want
mhm.
it all now. And that speaks to the failure. I think one of the reasons people are so much more concerned about failure today is because everybody's watching them on Snapchat, they're watching them on Instagram, watching them on Facebook, and so there's a greater exposure to my maladies
Yeah.
uh, than there was a long time ago, where the only people who saw you fail were close family and friends, and you had a close relationship with them. Now, people are going to watch you fail that you don't have a close relationship with, and it's out there for the universe to see. And
Mhm,
so this creates a tremendous aversion to failure, which of course is the foundation of innovation. You
mhm.
can't innovate without being, ready to fail. And so,
And I think another point too, if you're always seeing the social media perfect aspects of everyone else's
yeah.
farm because they take the strategically placed photos that don't show the weeds and the sickness and the injury, then you think everything else is perfect and no one else has problems. So if you have problems, that's wrong.
We've seen that, Michael, you put your finger on one of the biggest changes we've seen in our apprenticeship program over the 25 years, is that as social media has come uh, um, more and more ubiquitous, our apprentices come more and more expectantly.
Mm,
Because here at Polyface, we don't put the dead calf on on our website. We put the pretty picture with the with the cows in the pretty field.
yeah,
We don't put the drought on the website. We don't put the
yeah,
the whatever the predator attacks on the chickens.
yeah.
With 20 dead carcasses out there in the field. We don't put that on the website. And so what happens is our young people who are coming, whom we dearly love, but our young people who are coming, we're having to really become aggressively proactive at preparing them
Mm,
emotionally and psychologically. This is real. This isn't Disney World. This isn't fantasy. And you know what? It's not even Instagram.
mm,
It's the real deal. And
yeah.
and because if we don't, what we're finding is that the we're so built up in a fantasy expectation
Hmm.
that the first bobble out of the box suddenly, whoa, I didn't know this happened here, and and you have a much bigger crush than if you didn't have that expectation.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's the whole pedestal.
Yeah, absolutely, it's a pedestal. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. I never thought of it that way. So let's talk about people that have not started farming yet. They're still doing the YouTube thing, coming to Mother
Mhm.
Earth News. What do you think the first step is for them? They're still stuck in that 9 to 5.
All right, you can't Google experience. You can Google a lot of things, but you can't Google experience. And the most important equity you have, arguably in your life, anybody in their life,
Hmm.
um, is experience. And so you have to do something. Eventually, you have to do something. I mean, Alan Nation, my mentor, Stockman Grass Farmer founder, used to always say, you can read every book and watch. Well, he didn't say YouTube because it didn't exist back then, but you can read everything and go to every lecture about riding a bicycle that you want to go to. But until you actually get on the bicycle, you will never be able to ride it. And so again, you don't start building perfect castles in your mind of what it's going to be. Start with the most embryonic thing. If you want to grow vegetables, or can you grow a tomato plant? Can you grow a tomato plant on your patio? You know, that's growing vegetables. You don't have to have a 50-acre tomato field to grow a tomato. And if you begin growing a tomato, you will learn about tomato. You will learn the tomato-ness of tomatoes, okay? And you'll be able to go. And so, so again, I think that some of this desire to not hit the wrong button makes people paranoid of having it not perfect. And of course, you know, my favorite saying is, if it's worth doing poorly first. And there's a lot of freedom in that, And so if you want to raise chickens, well, can you have two? You know, get rid of the dog, the cat, the gerbil, and the boa constrictor, and put in two chickens, you know, and learn about chickens. My point is experience. So I think the biggest, you know, hurdle is for people to actually start building inertia positive. We tend to think of inertia as being negative, and it's true. You know, a body that's sitting still tends to stay sitting still, but inertia works the other way too. Momentum creates momentum, and if you start some movement and some momentum, guess what? The alignment of opportunity and experience and mentors, and you know, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. All of those things begin to happen when you start when you get the movement.
Absolutely. Because I think you also realize that if someone comes and looks at Polyface from the outside right now, they're like, I could never do this. But your father standing there when he first started, he never could imagine what you guys have become.
No, he couldn't. And certainly Teresa and I didn't either. You know, we couldn't have imagined it either. But you know, that's why that's why when somebody says, well, you know, I need to find 100 customers. No, you don't. You need to find one customer. And if you find one customer, you'll be able to find a second one. And the third one will be easier than the second one. And the 100th one will be easier than the 99th one.
Yeah, the 100th one will just come to you.
That's right. It's all about one. It's all about taking a step, doing a one, being content with one. And you'll learn so much by doing the one, whatever it is, the one tomato, one chicken, one cow, one sale, you know, one social media post, all right. Skill develops from repetition. You only become a master through repetition. And so the sooner you can begin starting your own reps, the faster you'll become a master.
Yeah. Right now I've got a 55-gallon drum full of straw soaking to mess with some mushrooms.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah. It's a half a bale of straw, you know, it's going to be 10 bags of mushrooms, but I'm pretty excited because I've done a bunch of interviews in the mushroom space now. And, but it's going to start with just those.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So talk to us about your farm right now. What's going on? What are you most excited about happening right now on your farm?
Oh, well, I guess what we're most excited about is that we've just brought on some additional personnel. A couple of former apprentices have come back, and after they left for greener pastures, and then realized, well, the pasture wasn't so bad there after all. And so we're having some returnees, and we're very excited about it. So there are numerous personnel shifts around, but essentially we're adding you know, 2 or 3 really top-notch, either salary-based employee or subcontractor, some both, in those spaces. So that creates a better core leadership team to better manage the interns, which are now not going to be interns anymore. They're going to be called stewards.
Okay.
So what we've learned in the last, you know, another thing that we've learned to move my cheese is that apprenticeship is still considered very positive, but internship has become a little bit derogatory societally, that oh, you can't get a real job, so you're gonna make coffee and do copies for the boss, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so we fished around for a term, and we came up with the term steward. So we're going to have stewards and then apprentices. And so there are a bunch of big changes in that program for next year. We've actually created a vision statement, a mission statement, a value proposition. Here's what we think the actual cash value is. There's going to be report cards to them, their report cards to us, to stimulate communication early on and not after it develops. There will be assigned book readings with book reports. So we're moving to a more really proactive, formalized educational component, and we're pretty excited about it. We think it's going to take us to a better place. One of the most interesting things I'm working on right now is trying to stabilize some of our farmland. This, we rent several places, and this year 3 of the places that we rent were sold. That's a pretty unstable situation. And what's amazing is we survived 2 of them and lost 1. So to survive 2 and lose 1, that's a pretty good record. But it does make us interested in how to create stability. And so one of them that we lost, I actually put out All Points Bulletin on my blog, on our website, and out of the blue, one of our fans said, "Yeah, I want to buy a farm that you manage," and he bought it, sight unseen. And so that's made me think, well, I wonder if somebody else out there is like that, and so we're actually, I'm actually putting a fair amount of attention on creating some sort of a holding company, LLC, something to allow people to buy land that we would manage, that would go one step beyond just getting good chicken or tomatoes. That's an interesting thing to try to orchestrate and talk about.
Very
cool. And as soon as I'm done with this, I'm heading into town to meet with a fella who's trying to put together a collaborative value-added space for commercial product, kitchen, that sort of thing, where artisans could come in, share stainless steel bathrooms, loading docks, and utilities, and have a shared value-added space. So, as far as where I'm putting attention, I'm looking at those kinds of things. Daniel's pretty well taking care of, production and moving all those pieces around. I'll have my second meeting Monday with a chef that's interested in working with us to launch a clean food, fast food diner establishment.
Oh, fun.
So I would love somehow to go head to head with McDonald's, with simple food, fast food, but nutrient dense, pasture based, non-chemical. And I think the cultural awareness there, I think the need is there, but nobody's done it. I think primarily because the ability to pull that off spans too many diverse talents, interests, or abilities. And so, but again, again, we're looking at one. If we can make one successful, then we'll look at another one. But it's all about one.
Yeah, well, I think you look at people that approach that problem, they approach it from the food side, and you obviously don't have the whole other side. So if you come at it with you're looking at all the pieces at one time, that's where you can make it work. Because obviously, like when you look at someone like Chick-fil-A who wants to supposedly use pastured chicken, they come at it from how many million pounds of chicken they use and they immediately give up. But if you're starting with one, you can scale from one.
That's right. Yeah. And you have to be willing to grow slowly. And so I'm not interested really in venture capitalists let's just do this. Let's make it profitable one, and then we'll just, roll them out one little piece at a time.
Very cool. So you've got a conference coming up in a couple, probably like 6-7 weeks now. Talk to us about the Rogue Food Conference.
Yeah, well, that's another change that's occurred in our culture as people realize how difficult it is to actually eat authentically. It's difficult. If I lived in a city, I'm intimidated actually, just imagining what it would be like to live in a condominium in a city and try to eat like I eat. And much of that difficulty is not because there's not a market for it or farmers don't want to produce it. The difficulty is in heavy-handed regulations, government regulations that are size prejudicial. This is the thing to realize. This is not about food safety, it's about food choice. And the food recalls that we have in this country, the people that are getting, salmonella contamination and E. coli and whatever, they're not getting it from farmers markets. They're getting it from USDA stamped approved material in huge sales venues. And so the key to keeping the price down and getting market access is all about scale appropriate regulations so that a person can start with a prototype and doesn't have to start with $1 million baby. The problem is that the bigger the embryo, the bigger the baby, the harder the birth is. And when the regulations make the baby so big that it can't be birthed, you don't have a baby. And so the Rogue Food Conference grew out of several of us being so frustrated at not being able to access the market. We want to produce it or make it. We've got neighbors that want it, that are happy to come over and buy it and pay for it. In fact, are desperate for it. But we can't interact with food commerce because it's illegal. Because we haven't gotten the licenses or the compliance or the infrastructure, the lumens in our light bulbs. I mean, name the right zoning, the right blah, blah, blah. And so the Rogue Food Conference, we're convening it to showcase some platforms that people have created to circumvent so that we can have food transactions that don't come under in-commerce. In-commerce is where they get you. I can give away raw milk, I just can't sell it. Okay, I can give away a backyard chicken, I just can't sell it. And so obviously it's not about food safety. It's about food safety. You couldn't give it away. This is the great hypocrisy in the drug wars versus the food wars. In the drug wars, they say these things are bad. You can't sell it, give it away. You can't even take it if you can get it. But in the food wars, if you can buy it, you can feed it to your kids, you can have it, you can eat it. The prohibition is only one way. It's on the farmer. You can't sell it. So the bad guy is the farmer. It's not the consumer. It's not the parent. It's not anybody. It's just the farmer. And that shows the the hypocrisy of it, that the prohibition, if it was really hazardous stuff, you shouldn't be able to even have it in your house or feed it to your kids. So the fact that if you can acquire it and feed it to your kids, everybody's happy, shows it's really not about food safety. It's about regulating what's available in the market. So there's a lady in North Carolina that started a food church, a 501c3 food church.
Okay.
And and if you join the church, you're able to get all this prohibited food. And so it's not public. And of course the government is trying to shut her down, and they can't touch her because it's a 501c3 food church. She's under religious exemption. There's a guy in Louisville, Kentucky, that has essentially a food country club. And if you join, and then at the cash register, instead of a cash register, you simply exchange, you invest, and the food is your dividend.
Okay.
And so again, it's not in commerce. And I mean, they're right on it. They've got a storefront down in Louisville, and they've got homemade charcuterie, cheese. I mean, everything illegal you can imagine. And the state can't touch them because it's not public, and the transaction is not a financial in-commerce transaction. So that's the kind of stuff we want. At the end of the day, we want people to leave with empowered with templates to be able to transact food interactions that circumvent these onerous rules rather than comply. We've gotten to a point where in many ways compliance is more efficient than circumvention is more efficient than compliance.
Gotcha. Yes. So instead of trying to be a part of the system, just be or go around the system.
Exactly. Go around the system. I mean, it's identical to where homeschooling was 35 years ago. I mean, 35 years ago, I can remember truant officers from the state coming into a home and taking the children out of the home to protect them from the negligence of parents who would not put them in schools. This is so we're in that kind of situation. I mean, vaccinations are coming close to that today.
It's getting scarier and scarier by the day. My wife tracks that very closely.
Sure. And many of us are not 100% opposed to vaccinations. I mean, I look back, when I was a kid, I had like 2 vaccinations between 1 and 6 years of age, like 2 or something. I mean, it wasn't much. I'm not ready to say, blanket, no vaccinations. Okay. But there's a big difference between that and the way it was done 60 years ago and today, where before an infant is even 6 weeks old, they've had 20 vaccinations. It's absurd. It's absurd. But if you even dare question the modern today's orthodoxy of multi-vaccines in the first a few days of an infant's life, then you're anti-science, you're a troublemaker, you're a heretic, burn them at the stake.
Yeah. I just heard a quote that said it's very interesting and pay attention to what you're not allowed to discuss.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, numerous of the gurus out, like Dr. Joe Mercola, some of these gurus out there that have very, very large audiences, they're actually being
shadow banned.
Yes. Yeah.
On media. Yeah. On Google. I was on actually a call with Joe Mercola about that. He was talking about how basically Google completely shut off his traffic, and he showed the graph.
Right.
And that's to me, it's criminal, because it's basically mean we no longer live in a free speech society.
That's right. Oh, absolutely. And people say, well, Google's a private company, they can do whatever they want to. No, they're not a private company. They got special dispensations in whatever it was in 1999 to not be a publisher. So they're immune. They're the agreement, about this. The agreement was made. All right, we won't hold you liable for anything that's on your platform as long as you let anything on your platform. That was kind of the tit for tat kind of thing. And so Google said, okay, then we're not a publisher, we're not private, and here they are messing around with the traffic.
Yeah, hoping people forgot about that.
Yeah, I think there is definitely the whole Trump phenomenon is a bit of both the Trump phenomenon and the Bernie Sanders phenomenon. Both of those are indicative of a discontentedness. The natives are stirring, and what you and I are talking about is part of the native stirring is starting to question the party line of Monsanto, the party line of Purdue, Tyson, whatever that party line is, Campbell's Soup. I mean, whatever that party line is, there's more and more stirring among the natives. Not sure that that's actually the true thing.
I was just saying something the other day to somebody. I said the way our current political, environmental, and food society is running is a con on the common man.
Well, absolutely it is. Yeah, because if you don't have a resource base, you don't have freedom. The only way to actually have freedom is to be able to have stuff to do stuff to. If you don't have stuff to do stuff to, you don't have freedom and choice too. I mean, you mentioned choice a little bit ago. I mean, we live in an age of choice. I mean, you can choose your sex, choose your, you can choose everything about yourself. We certainly ought to be able to choose our own food. That seems like a most fundamental choice that we should have. And the only reason the framers did not put it in the Bill of Rights was because they couldn't have imagined a day when you could take a quiche over to your neighbor, or a neighbor couldn't come to your house and buy a quiche or a glass of milk from you. They couldn't have imagined that.
Absolutely. And those who are so for the supposedly freedom of everything else are so against the freedom of actual food and just society.
Too often that's the case.
Well, Joel, this has been great. Again, the dates for the Rogue Food Conference, that's January 25th.
That's right. January 25th, Cincinnati, Ohio. All you have to do is you just Google in Rogue Food Conference. It'll pop right up. Love to have you. And Congressman Thomas Massey will be there. He's the patron of the Prime Act, and he's a great speaker, fun to listen to. So we're getting a fair amount of support, and we hope that it'll be. I mean, we're hoping to actually generate some media attention on the issue. And the whole, our mantra is choice. That's our mantra is choice. And we live in an age when that has some traction.
Yeah, and I'm going to be there. It's only 30 minutes south of my house, so I'm showing up. And the airport is super easy to fly into. So if you are coming in from afar, this is super easy flights in and out. So it's going to be awesome. So again, Joel, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate you kind of just setting the stage for this 3-day event. And it's been a fabulous conversation, and hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you, Michael. It's been an honor to be with you.